If you're new to this series, these videos are where I summarize what the Trump administration has been doing to higher education and how colleges and universities have responded. Here are the latest developments since the last video as of today, March 27, 2025. I've organized it all into 4 categories: federal level, campus cuts, DEI, and academic responses. There will be copious links in the show notes. Let's begin at the federal level. Things are still in flux at the Department of Education after President Trump issued an executive order trying to abolish it, as we noted in previous episodes. It seems that the government is trying to move loan servicing to the Small Business Administration and some other functions to Health and Human Services. The department seems to be reactivating some income-based loan repayment plans after the American Federation of Teachers filed suit. Meanwhile, the Education Department's head made positive noises about moving towards restoring some funding to Columbia University after that institution agreed to administration demands. Dozens of Columbia faculty, hundreds according to historian Adam Tooze, protested the agreement in public, while dozens more criticized the campus president, Katrina Armstrong, in a town hall meeting. Armstrong defended her decision by focusing on financial and student matters. Quote, "The ability of the federal administration to leverage other forms of federal funding in an immediate fashion is really potentially devastating to our students in particular," unquote. "I think it is a really critical risk for us to understand," quote unquote. Turning to the National Institutes of Health and Centers for Disease Control, the NIH and CDC began cutting billions in COVID-19 research grants, arguing that the pandemic is over and that research is no longer necessary. Elsewhere, the Justice Department and the Department of Homeland Security have escalated their deportation campaign against international academics. The Justice Department told a Cornell University PhD student to surrender to immigration officials after he sued the Trump administration for this very campaign. Days later, lawyers of the Justice Department emailed to request that the student surrender to immigration officials. Momodou Taal has dual British and Gambian citizenship. As Mr. Taal has not surrendered nor been arrested, I can only describe his status as on the run or in hiding. In the Boston area, masked federal agents seized Rumesya Ozturk, a Turkish PhD student at Tufts University, and held her in Louisiana. The government has yet to share reasons for the detention, Ozturk's lawyer. Tufts' president publicly stated that, quote, "The university has no pre-knowledge of this incident. It did not share any information with federal authorities prior to the event, and the location where this took place is not affiliated with Tufts University. From what we have been told subsequently, the student's visa has been terminated," unquote. ICE agents sought to detain and deport Yunseo Chung, a Columbia University student, permanent U.S. resident, born in Korea, apparently for some pro-Palestinian commentary. Federal authorities have not yet seized Chung. I feel at this moment I can only describe her status as on the run or in hiding. In the Mahmoud Khalil case, federal authorities added new charges against the detained Columbia University graduate, stating that he failed to disclose his work with British and United Nations nonprofits. Khalil wrote a letter about his case, which the Jacobin website published. I'll share one excerpt here. Quote, "Columbia targeted me for my activism, creating a new authoritarian disciplinary office to bypass due process and silence students criticizing Israel. Columbia surrendered to federal pressure by disclosing student records to Congress and yielding to the Trump administration's latest threats. My arrest, the expulsion or suspension of at least 22 Columbia students, some stripped of their BA degrees just weeks before graduation, and the expulsion of student workers of Columbia President Grant Minor on the eve of contract negotiations are clear examples," unquote. The whole letter, linked from show notes, is worth reading in full. Meanwhile, Georgetown University's postdoctoral fellow, Badr Khan Suri, remains in detention. Second topic, cuts. Within higher education, one response to Trump actions is cuts to programs and operations. Some universities have announced hiring freezes, such as the University of Southern California, which may also take other austerity measures. On the DEI area, a particular focus of this administration, the Virginia Community College System State Board ordered those 23 colleges to cease DEI programs and activities. It's worth noting how many aspects of college life this touches. In one account, quote, "Admissions, hiring, promotion, compensation, financial aid, scholarships, prizes, administrative support, discipline, housing, and graduation ceremonies," unquote. And last category, reactions. There's been a lot of academic silence in response to the Trump administration's activities, as well as silence from academically adjacent people and enterprises. But there is also protest, resistance, and actions. Princeton University's president, Christopher L. Eisgruber, published an article in The Atlantic condemning Columbia University's acceptance of Trump administration demands. He sees the story as a warning to the rest of American research universities. Quote, "Nobody should suppose that this will stop at Columbia or with the specific academic programs targeted by the government's letter. Precisely because great research universities are centers of independent creative thought, they generate arguments and ideas that challenge political power across fields as varied as international relations, biology, economics, and history. If government officials think that stifling such criticism is politically acceptable and legally permissible, some people in authority will inevitably yield to the temptation to do so." Unquote. Critics of the Trump administration's closure of the Institute of Museum and Library Services appeared from multiple quarters, including the IMLS Board, the American Library Association, the State of Michigan, and the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, or IFLA. I'll have links to all of those in the show notes. Elsewhere, some faculty and staff are making public statements in response. For example, a group of deans from multiple law schools signed on to a Berkeley law statement against the Trump administration's actions against legal firms. Now, some public demonstrations are starting to occur. I mentioned some Columbia University faculty protesting that institution's accession to Trump's demands. Protesters also gathered at Cornell University to criticize the federal effort to deport a graduate student. Georgetown University students protested the federal detention of Badr Khan Suri. Elsewhere, a coalition is planning for a day of academic labor action on April 17th. Legal action is also underway. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the National Education Association, and AFSCME Maryland Council 3, supported by the Student Defense and Education Law Center, sued the administration over its attempt to dismantle the Department of Education. The American Association of University Professors and the American Federation of Teachers sued the administration over its cancellation of funds to Columbia University. The American Association of University Professors and the Middle East Studies Association also sued the Trump administration over the deportation campaign we mentioned earlier. There are also hiring and programmatic developments which bear on the crisis. To pick one example, Yale University launched a program in anti-Semitism studies and hired its first director, possibly as a hedge against Trump actions. Non-academics have also made public statements against Trump's anti-academic campaign. Multiple fire chiefs across the country criticized the Federal Emergency Management Administration's decision to close the National Fire Academy as weakening the department's training. Beyond the U.S., there are international responses. The University of Toronto hired 3 Yale University scholars, each of whom researches authoritarianism. Several more European universities have openly advertised for American professors. To summarize, the Trump administration is continuing to go after higher education through multiple government offices and in many ways, from funding cuts to deportations and extraordinary interference into one university's autonomy. Fear is the order of the day. Members of the academic community are starting to react in public, from issuing statements, holding demonstrations, and filing lawsuits. Foreign universities are starting to encourage American faculty to migrate. Deportation of students are rising. I can't believe that I have to say some students are in federal custody while others are hiding from authorities. But that is where we are in March 2025. I hope this video summary has been of use to you. Please share your thoughts, additions, and other reactions in the comment box below. If you don't feel you can comment publicly, please reach out to me directly through the contact link at the end of today's show notes. This is a rough, dark time. It seems likely to get worse. I hope we can help each other out and fight. Please take care, everyone.